Well, Matt, if there was any sense that Donald Trump would lose his grip on the Republican Party, give it up to Ron DeSantis or Nikki Hayley, that was very much put to bed last night. These results were every inch the cementing of Trump as the de facto king of the Republican Party. Just listen to some of these stats, Matt. His 30-point margin of victory was the highest ever in an Iowan Republican caucus. He won 98 out of the 99 counties here, and the one county he lost by a single vote. And he won across all demographics, not just the evangelicals and those without a college degree. Even educated, college-educated Iowans also plumped for Trump. So does this mean that he now wins the nomination? Well, that's probably still too early to say. Let's see what happens next weekend in New Hampshire. But if you are Donald Trump today, last night was certainly a very good start.
Welcome to the Precinct 2 caucus for the Republican Party.
Hard to believe that American presidents are made in school canteens like this. But here in Iowa, they've been doing it that way since the 1800s. Voters caucus. They come together. They make a pitch for their candidates.
He's a billionaire. He's not bought and paid for by anybody.
DeSantis was able to lower the cost of drugs in Florida. I want him to do it to nationwide.
Write their favorite on a slip of paper, then count the ballots.
For Ron DeSantis, we have 2 votes. For Nikki Haley, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes. And for Donald Trump, we have 1, 2,
and last night, as we watched on, a first glimpse of what was to come.
14, 15 votes.
Yay, Trump!
Yeah, there's a...
At another count down the corridor, a pattern was beginning to emerge.
Trump, 50. Haley, 6.
The polls had predicted Donald Trump would easily take Iowa.
And Donald Trump had 22.
But no one had predicted the sheer speed with which he'd do it.
Trump.
For no sooner had they announced the results of this small precinct.
Donald Trump, 25.
CNN had already declared the entire state for Trump.
The former president pulling off a huge early victory in his bid to return to the White House.
It happened so fast, just 30 minutes in, that Team Trump hadn't even arrived at its own election party. But the MAGA faithful soon emerged.
This country is amazing, and President Trump is an incredible.
Does this mean Trump becomes president, though? Winning Iowa is one thing. Does he become
president? I believe he does. I believe he does, yes.
We knew he was going to win the whole time. So
does that mean he'll win the presidency?
Of course, he's going to win. Hi, guys.
Listen, I was trying to be conservative earlier today because you want to see the votes come in. But it's clear this country wants President Trump back. That's what Republican voters want. And with all due respect to the other campaigns, this thing is over as far as I'm concerned.
And when Donald Trump finally emerged to bask in his victory, it was as if he'd already won the presidency, not just Iowa.
We're going to drill, baby, drill right away. Drill, baby, drill. We're going to seal up the border.
Turnout was blunted after a blistering freeze gripped the Midwestern state, but the draw of Trump was simply too strong. Winning in Iowa doesn't necessarily guarantee the nomination, but if the first in the nation caucus is all about momentum, then the Trump train had well and truly hurtled out of the station.
I want to congratulate President Trump on his win tonight.
Leaving behind Nikki Hayley, who needed to come a strong second, instead in third place.
Thank you so much.
She was beaten by the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, who spoke as if he'd trounced, not trailed Trump by 30 points.
In spite of all of that they threw at us, everyone against us, we've got our ticket punched out of Iowa.
That means his campaign can continue. But isn't Trump's nomination now an inevitability? Joe Biden clearly thinks it is, hence the top team he dispatched to Iowa to make his case for re-election.
You've seen inflation come down, you've seen more and more jobs. He's created more jobs than any president, I think, in my lifetime.
Why, though, is that message, do you think, not getting through?
You haven't yet had a campaign, and you need to have 2 competing visions for people to make a decision. If you're a working family and you need help, Joe Biden is on your side.
With Iowa under his belt, Trump's motorcade was back in New York today, and a court appearance in one of his multiple civil and criminal cases all of which have ironically boosted him among Republicans and made a rerun of 2020, with all its convulsive twists and turns, now more inevitable than ever.
Siobhan Kennedy in Iowa. Well, joining me now in the studio is the political strategist Shannon Felton-Spencer from Harvard's Belfer Center and from Northern Virginia, the conservative political commentator Bill Kristol. Let me start with you, Bill Kristol. Do you think that Trump is now inevitable as the nominee of the Republican Party?
No, I think he's very likely, as he was before this. And if you're anti-Trump, as I am, one of the depressing things about this is the polls were saying that this would be the result, and this was the result. So at least in Iowa, there wasn't a hidden anti-Trump vote. There wasn't a last-minute sense of, oh, we can't go down that road again. Polls have shown consistently that more than half of the Republican Party, having nominated Trump twice, elected him to the presidency once, wants to nominate him again, and you'd have to bet on that right now.
Shannon, you agree?
I think I do agree about Iowa, but New Hampshire's a very different state. They're more independent. They're more registered independents, and they can vote in that primary. It's a primary.
The state motto is live free or die.
The state motto is live free or die. They're sort of notorious for picking contrarian choice, right?
So you think Nikki Haley, who's been polling very well in New Hampshire, still has a chance?
I think that there's a chance, but she has to come in first to move on to South Carolina.
But is that enough to change the momentum, do you think?
It could be. It could be. If is what the name of the game.
Bill Kristol, Nikki Haley and New Hampshire, is that a busted flush, or do you have enough hope there?
No, I think she has a real chance to win New Hampshire. Much tougher then to translate that into actually defeating Trump in South Carolina, Michigan, Super Tuesday, and so forth. But you don't know if Nikki Haley can beat Trump just by a point or two in New Hampshire. That big check mark goes up against Nikki Haley's name on Tuesday night. It could change the psychology a fair amount. But I had hoped that she would be second in New Hampshire, that the margin might be smaller, Trump might be under 50%. That would begin to change the psychology. That hasn't happened yet.
There are many people in this country, Bill Kristol, who are scratching their heads or even chewing their lips, wondering how is it possible that a man like Donald Trump, the more his legal problems amount, the more popular he becomes in the polls, and the votes have just proven it. How did that happen?
Yeah, plenty of us are scratching our heads about that too, and there are many, many reasons, undoubtedly. But look, I think it's a real fact, and I think one of the things he's benefited from is an awful lot of people who don't like Trump assuming the courts would take him in, do him in, the media would do him in, this comment of his would do him in, and he's been pretty resistant to all these different aspects of our country that might, in a normal situation, might damage a presidential candidate. And he's going to have to be defeated at the ballot box, either in the primaries, that's an outside shot, or in the general election.
Shannon, why do you think Trump has reversed all the political calculations and still does so? You know, the man's going to be in court and on the campaign trail. Normally that would completely smoke, so to speak, a political candidate.
I actually think that's his Achilles heel. So entrance polls into Iowa caucuses last night actually did show that a vast majority of voters do not want their general election nominee to be a convicted felon. And although we may not have that answer until June, so it might be too late, that's going to really eat into his electability.
So if he is convicted by June, by the time the conventions come around, that's going to be tough for him to actually then take that to the general election and win.
I think that's right. I mean, voters are going to start to see that if they want to win the next presidential election, they're going to need somebody other than Donald Trump.
Okay. Bill Kristol, let's say he gets all the way to November, and he may have been convicted, yes or no. Does he then still beat Joe Biden? What do you think?
We don't know, but I don't quite believe. I'm wary of putting too much hope in the notion that he'll be convicted. He may not be convicted. The trial may not happen. He may not be convicted at the trial. There could be a hung jury, right? Okay. And furthermore, it's not clear that these voters who say they would turn from him really will do so. I think it's a 50-50 race right now. There was a poll this morning in Georgia that showed Trump ahead by 8 points in a state that Biden narrowly won in 2020. There are mixed polls that show it a pretty even race. Trump should not be underestimated. That has been a problem throughout. And he's a very effective demagogue. He's got more of a professional team behind him. He's more dangerous this time, which really appalls people like me if you're to become president. But that doesn't mean that he won't have a real shot.
So at the moment, you're saying it's 50-50. It's a toss-up whether he becomes president or not, assuming he gets the nomination.
That's what I think, yeah.
Shannon, is there anyone that will the Democrats at some stage panic and say, actually this is a really bad idea? Or does Joe Biden actually relish the idea of taking Donald Trump on again because he thinks he can beat him?
Oh, no, make no mistake. The Democrats want the nominee to be Donald Trump because they know that they can beat Donald Trump. They cannot beat any of the other candidates in the primary race.
If Nikki Haley got the nomination, they wouldn't be able to beat her?
If we are to believe polls, which as of today I do, Nikki Haley would beat President Biden by about 19 points.
Bill Kristol, if he does become president again, Donald Trump, and I guess many of us have to prepare for that possibility, what can we expect from his second administration, do you think?
I mean, one reason people like me are so alarmed is that I don't think we can expect the institutionalists, the old guard, the establishment types to be there to check some of his instincts and check some of his more irresponsible advisors in the second term. They're much more organized. They're ready for a real nationalist, populist, isolationist agenda, which I think would be very bad for the country and very bad for the world as a whole.
Shannon, one of the arguments that Biden keeps saying is that this is democracy versus autocracy versus dictatorship. Does that argument resonate with ordinary Americans?
I think it does to some voters, but I want to say to President Biden that you get one shot to run on lofty ideals and audacious goals and values and principles, and he already did that.
Right.
And once you're elected, you have to run on record. And that's where he really gets tripped up, because although he does have good economic story to tell, he's having a very hard time selling it.
Shannon Felton Spencer, Bill Kristol, thank you very much to both of you.